There is a certain gesture that happens so fast, most people never think about it twice. Two hands meet in the air, there's a grip, a shake, a release, and the whole thing is over in under 3 seconds. No one questions it, no one explains it, and almost no one asks where it came from. But somewhere behind that 3-second ritual is a story about war, religion, class, rebellion, and fear. The handshake was not invented to be polite. It was invented to keep people alive. Many people think the handshake is just a custom, a piece of etiquette their parents taught them, a thing you do at a job interview. But the truth is this tiny gesture is one of the oldest surviving pieces of human risk management technology on the planet. It was built to answer one question before words ever could. Can I trust the hand in front of me? Today, we are going to trace the handshake back through 6,000 years of history. We'll go from a stone carving of two kings, through Roman soldiers checking for hidden knives, through a group of religious outcasts who broke the law by refusing to bow, all the way to a global pandemic that almost killed it. By the end, you'll understand why a 2-second grip has survived longer than most empires. Let's start with the mystery itself. Historians actually do not agree on who invented the handshake. There are two competing threads. The first is political and sacred, an act performed by kings and gods to transfer power. The second is far more street level, an act performed by ordinary strangers to prove they were not about to kill each other. Both threads are true, and both of them are still buried somewhere in your palm every time you shake someone's hand. Clue 1. The first handshake ever carved in stone. The oldest physical evidence of a handshake is not a myth or a legend. It is a slab of stone, roughly 3,000 years old, sitting in a museum today. It shows the Assyrian King Shalmaneser III clasping hands with a Babylonian king to seal an alliance between their two nations. Two of the most powerful men of the 9th century BC, men who commanded armies and controlled empires, chose this exact gesture to make their treaty official. Not a signature, not a seal, just a grip. Why a grip? Because in the ancient world, the hand was a weapon. Every hand you encountered could be holding a blade, and every stranger was a potential threat until proven otherwise. Historians point out that an open, empty hand extended toward another person was, quite literally, a way of saying, I am not about to attack you. Some researchers go a step further and argue that the shaking motion itself, the up and down pumping we still do today, may have started as a practical safety check. If someone had a small dagger hidden up their sleeve, a firm shake could knock it loose before it ever reached you. Whether or not that detail is precisely true, the underlying logic is not in dispute. This gesture was born out of danger, not manners. Clue 2. The Greek promise. Move forward a few centuries and the handshake turns up again, this time in poetry. The Greek poet Homer described warriors clasping hands and pledging their faith to each other in both the Iliad and the Odyssey. In ancient Greece, the gesture even had a name, dexiosis, roughly meaning to take the right hand. You can still see it carved into gravestones from the 5th and 4th centuries BC, showing the dead shaking hands with the living, sealing a bond that death itself was not allowed to break. This is the moment the handshake stops being purely about physical safety and becomes something closer to a spoken contract without words. A promise you could see. The Romans inherited this idea and pushed it further, stamping clasped hands onto their coins beside the goddess of harmony, using the gesture to represent loyalty, friendship, and good faith in business. In Rome, some historians believe soldiers took the forearm grasp one step further, gripping each other's wrists instead of hands, specifically to check that no blade was strapped beneath a sleeve. Trust, even at its most sacred, still came with a built-in security check. Clue 3. The Vanishing Act. Here is where the story takes a turn most people do not expect. The handshake did not travel in a straight line from ancient Greece to your last job interview. For long stretches of the Middle Ages, it nearly disappeared from everyday life. As Europe organized itself into strict social hierarchies, greetings became a way of publicly displaying rank. A nobleman did not shake hands with a servant. He extended a leg, bowed from the waist, and swept his hat off with a flourish, a slow, theatrical performance that could take several seconds to complete. A person of lower status was expected to bow their head or remove their own hat in return. Every greeting was really a small ceremony confirming who outranked whom. The handshake, a gesture that treats both hands as exactly equal, had almost no place in a world built on the opposite idea. For a while, it looked like the handshake might simply fade into history, a relic of a flatter, more dangerous ancient world that no longer applied. Clue 4. The rebellion that saved it. Then in the 1650s, a small religious group in England refused to play along. and their refusal changed everything. They were called Quakers, and they believed something radical for their time, that every person was equal in the eyes of God, whether they were a king or a farmer. So they did something that sounds small today, but was genuinely dangerous then. They would not bow. They would not remove their hats for lords, judges, or clergy. Quaker men were fined, jailed, and fired from their jobs simply for keeping their hats on in a courtroom. This was not a fashion choice. It was a form of civil disobedience performed with a piece of felt. Instead of the bow or the hat tip, Quakers offered something else entirely, a plain, direct handshake, given equally to a duke or a dockworker. Historians studying this period describe it as a quiet social negotiation happening across Britain. It spread through two overlapping networks: merchants doing business across national borders who needed a fast and neutral greeting, and Quakers who used it on principle. Slowly, hierarchy started losing its grip on the culture, and the handshake filled the space it left behind. Secret societies like the Freemasons even developed their own specialized handshake grips, using a variation of the gesture as a silent password to identify members of the group. What had once been a battlefield safety signal was now becoming a badge of belonging. By the time Jane Austen was writing novels in the early 1800s, a very friendly shake of the hand between equals was already an unremarkable everyday thing. A gesture born from Stone Age danger had been rescued from extinction by a group of people who simply refused to bow. Clue 5. The science hiding inside your palm. The handshake didn't just survive into the modern world. It went to work. By the 20th century, it had become the unofficial closing signature of the business world. Shake on it meant the deal was done, sometimes carrying more weight than a piece of paper. And once psychologists got their hands on the gesture, literally, they discovered something strange. This quick exchange is quietly broadcasting a huge amount of information about you. Researchers at the University of Alabama had strangers rate handshakes on 8 separate qualities: strength, grip completeness, dryness, warmth, duration, vigor, texture, and eye contact. The firmer, more complete handshakes were consistently rated as more extroverted, more open, and less anxious. That held true for both men and women. A separate study out of the University of Iowa found something with real stakes attached. Job candidates with stronger handshakes received significantly higher hiring recommendations, regardless of their resume. Charity fundraisers who shook hands with strangers before making their pitch saw donation rates nearly double, compared to fundraisers who skipped the handshake entirely. Your brain, it turns out, is running a trust calculation before the conversation has even started, using your palm as the primary input device. This is the same ancient software from that Assyrian relief, still running 3,000 years later. Your hand is empty. Your hand is warm. Your hand is steady. All of that gets processed silently in a fraction of a second, long before either of you has said a single word. The threat? A virus versus a 3,000-year-old habit. And then, in 2020, this ancient survival tool suddenly became the exact opposite of safe. A global pandemic turned every handshake into a potential transmission event. Overnight, world leaders were photographed bumping elbows and touching feet instead of shaking hands. Public health officials openly speculated that the handshake, a gesture that had outlived the Roman Empire, the entire Middle Ages, and 2 world wars, might finally be replaced for good. For the first time in 3,000 years, the very feature that made the handshake powerful, the fact that it requires 2 strangers to physically touch, was the exact reason it had to stop. It is a strange twist. The gesture invented to prove you weren't a danger to someone became, for a while, dangerous simply by existing. So does the handshake still matter? The pandemic slowed it down. It did not kill it. And the reason it survived says something important about why humans invented this gesture in the first place. First, a handshake is fast trust, and fast trust is rare. In a world full of scripted small talk and curated online profiles, a handshake is one of the few moments where 2 strangers exchange something real and unfiltered in under 3 seconds. You cannot fake dryness, warmth, or a steady grip the way you can fake a smile in a photo. Second, a handshake is symmetrical by design. Unlike a bow, a salute, or a curtsy, no one kneels and no one stands taller. Both hands meet at exactly the same height. That is not an accident of anatomy. It is the entire reason Quakers risked prison to use it. Equality was never an accessory to the handshake. It was the whole point. Third, a handshake ends. It is not a hug that lingers or a stare that has to be broken off awkwardly. It is a contained exchange with a clear beginning and a clear end. That is exactly what makes it so useful for closing a deal, opening a meeting, or saying goodbye to someone you may never see again. So the next time a hand reaches toward yours, know what you are actually holding. You are not just meeting someone. You are performing a compressed 3-second reenactment of a survival ritual. The same one that once helped a Babylonian king decide whether to trust an Assyrian army. It once got a Quaker farmer thrown into an English jail too, just for refusing to bow. Across 3,000 years, that ritual has survived swords, empires, class systems, and a pandemic, staying almost exactly the same. 2 open hands, no weapons, no hierarchy, just a few seconds of shared trust. That is not a small thing. That is one of the oldest promises the human species ever made to itself. If this changed the way you think about something as small as a handshake, let me know in the comments which part surprised you the most. Was it the Assyrian king, the Quakers who went to jail for refusing to bow, or the fact that your grip might be quietly deciding whether you get hired? If you enjoyed this, hit like and send it to someone who has a job interview coming up. They might want a firmer grip. Thank you for watching until this moment. We are the First Spark. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what we uncover next time. Goodbye, and see you soon.